It was said that if you were not there, you were out. It was like Orchard Road for the young people then. From 1960 to 1980, the Old National Library was the place where people spent their free time studying, hanging out, and found the love of their life in the building made of red bricks. Today, when you visit the Old National Library, you will find only 2 brick pillars making the entrance on either side, a reminder of a building that once stood behind the empty entrance. Fort Canning Tunnel, standing in its place, reminds you of the relentless development in Singapore and makes you wonder about the Old National Library in its heyday. The Old National Library was donated by Lee Kong Tsien to build the first free public library. The red brick building was greatly successful, which shows that there was a great demand for such a service in the 70s. In the end of the 19th century, MCD and URA had a conflict of interests. MCD wanted the adaptive free use of the vacated library building at Stamford Road, because it would be easily adaptable for the National Museum's needs for expansion. URA adopted the opposite stance for demolishing the library building. The advantages for the demolition of the Old National Library and build a Fort Canning Tunnel were economical and important for the connectivity of the transport infrastructure. The government's position is reflected in their eventual adoption of URA's strategy, and they gave the go-ahead for the demolition of the Old National Library. I would like to mention the Ise Grand Shrine in Japan as an example. The Naiku and Geku shrines are both rebuilt every 20 years. However, every Japanese would consider the shrine as the oldest building in Japan as an authentic original. To come back to the Old National Library, what was the loss of the Old National Library? The physical building may not exist anymore, but the main idea and the spirit of the first public library can still live on. The spirit of reading and learning on your own accord. After the foundation of the National Library Board, the innovative use of technology reduced the decline of the uncomfortable usage of the library by self-service borrowing stations, e-kiosks, and book-dropping stations spread in whole Singapore. The formation of the National Library Board in 1995 can be seen as the offspring of the Old National Library. The spirit of the Old National Library that was manifested in the physical red brick structure now exists as a regulatory board, the NLB, with much the same aims as before. Through National Library Board, there are now 26 neighborhood libraries and archives distributed all over the island. Though we may have lost the original physical building, I would argue that the loss have been limited to only that, the physical building itself. The Old National Library as a whole building made sense in the past as it was then, the first and only public library in Singapore. Today we have many neighborhood libraries and archives spread out in Singapore. For National Library Board to build an entire new building for the new National Library to act as headquarters, it reflects the NLB's belief that it is not enough for them to have many neighborhood libraries, which can by themselves keep alive the spirit of reading and learning, but more than that this spirit requires a physical symbol and icon. Is this necessary? The aim of the NLB is to promote reading, learning and information literacy by providing a trustless, accessible and globally connected library and information service of the public libraries. Learning can be made more effective through the exchange of information, so perhaps the new National Library can act as a meeting place for the people of different backgrounds to share information and knowledge. Therefore, an icon is essential to provide a beacon to attract people and bring people together. Time and technology had changed a lot in the history of libraries in Singapore. The first public library was the beginning of an experience which has prevailed until today. The spirit of the library is still here, although the physical building itself doesn't exist anymore. People at the time protested the demolition of the red brick building, but I feel that they are holding on to nostalgia that the Singapore government feels Singapore can't afford. What is truly important is that the main idea of the public libraries lives on and have been improved year after year by the National Library Board. The new National Library, whether necessary in the past, has now in the present already firmly integrated itself into the site. While we can continue to ask questions about the demolition of its predecessor, it is clearly evident today that the new National Library is a necessary part of the Bugis Brass Bazaar urbanscape. In that sense, it is an NLB that planned for it remain a success. When the time comes for the currently new National Library to be demolished or relocated, the same question will inevitably be raised again.